Good morning, everybody. For any newcomers, my name is Shannon Olsen. I've been on a break for about 2.5 months, and this is my first webinar back since my short sabbatical. So I'm really, really happy to be here. This is one of my favorite parts of what I do is being in these webinar sessions. We also have Carol with us. She's been with us the last couple months. She's just here to chat with me and to fill in and to add her wisdom. She is the owner and CEO of Henley Leadership Group. And then Sam, as always, is in the chat, available to help as needed. Let me just get myself here. It's been a minute. Okay, hello. Oh, well, oh, thanks. Now I see the chat. I've been trying to figure out where it was.
Yeah.
Great, great. Um, Fantastic. I like seeing who's here. Happy Friday, Mark. Hello, hello. Okay, Sam, do you mind getting us going here with the slides? So before we jump into the content today, oh, we want to re-presence this idea of why we do this. And this is a practice that, once again, I'm going to encourage you to consider with anything you do at your workplace. Why are you doing this? And how do you remind people this is why we're doing this? So the big idea almost a year ago now was that we wanted to create a touch point once a month for leaders where we get grounded and settled into something we can focus on that's going to create some sort of simplicity, some sort of steadiness, that we keep our attention on learning and that we keep our attention on leadership. So that's why we're here, is for that. Um, and before we dive into the content, I just want to highlight that in May of 2026, we are doing our first big open enrollment, getting all of our favorite people together for a full day of learning and leadership together. Um, Sam is going to be sending out to people who are our webinar attendees. And for those who have been with us for this year, you all get a discount on admission. I really, really invite you to show up. Sam and I spent all day yesterday really diving into the experience and what we're creating, and it's going to be really remarkable. And we get to be together in person. So please look for more info for that. Take advantage of your early bird pricing as our webinar attendees. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to Sam and she'll take great care of you in that way.
This will be great energy, great learning, and a super opportunity just to meet other leaders.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is our main focus. We want to have a surge of energy and leadership. We want to connect all of our favorite people to each other. We want to have some levity along with some deep, important learning. So if any of you have worked with us before, you know that balance well with us. Fantastic. Okay, so today, oh, sorry, ways to participate. Um, Use the chat, engage in the polls. Please just feel free to enter questions and engage. I love it when people engage. It helps me do better at my job. And as always, keep figuring out how do you use this in between webinar sessions. Personally, sometimes in life, we just can only learn and then we have to do nothing with it. 100% okay. And we can begin to stretch to say, how do I implement some of this learning between sessions? And also invite your team, use this with your team, spread it to those who you think would really gain some new insights from all this work. Fantastic. Okay, so last month, my understanding is that you started some work around change and transition. And this month, we're going to continue that sort of thread, but looking specifically at two particular things that can happen during moments of transition. One is performance dips, and the second is resistance. Two things that you can always count on that will show up as you're moving an organization or a team or just yourself through a new change and transition. So a quick recap for those who weren't here last month is one of the models we played with was the Bridges transition model. Sam, do you mind flipping to the next slide? Beautiful. So kind of a quick recap, and Carol, please add in, given you were the one that was there. But my understanding is we talked a bit about the distinction of change and transition, the Bridges model, and that really your work as leaders is to guide people through the transition, not just the new processes or what they're supposed to be doing, but really this idea of their own internal experience of what's happening in those moments. Carol, anything you want to
Yeah.
say from last month?
Yeah. I would add just as a reminder that the change happens in the moment. The moment you get the information, then the moment the experience happens, the transition is all of the internal, the things you think and feel and do after you get the notice or experience that initial change. And that's
Right.
an important piece to remember in change in general, is that the change happened in a moment
Hmm.
and then everything else unfolds afterwards. And we have feelings and reactions and responses to that. But
Fantastic.
this model's pointing to.
And
And
for,
the second piece that we want to remember is that we want to bypass the ending oftentimes, and we even bypass the neutral zone. We want to jump straight to the new thing. Let's get on with it. Let's get on with the new world. And in doing so, we can miss a lot of critical learning, creativity, and innovation.
Absolutely. And for those of you who were here last month, feel free to drop anything in the chat that you remember that stuck out, in your mind that was a useful little insider nugget of learning. Just to get your voices in here would be great. Hi, Tracy. Fantastic. So today, as I said, Sam, you can go ahead and flip to that. Great. So, oh, good, perfect. So check in. So get ourselves here, to get ourselves rooted in this sort of work today. Think of a recent transition you've been part of. So it could be something that's ongoing right now, or something that a change happened and you got thrown in transition. As you reflect on that, which phase did you notice most strongly? What was the phase, now that you know a bit about endings, neutrals, and new beginnings? Which one, when you reflect back, sticks out for you the most, and why? What was happening in those phases? As you're all getting in the chat, I think most of you know that about a year ago, our founder and previous CEO, Dee Dee Henley, transitioned and moved on to have a fantastic life with grandkids and family and pottery. And so our firm has been in such a large transition. As I think about it, we're still in it. I think what I'm most present to right now is supporting all of us in that neutral zone, as well as working with Carol and myself and our leadership team to keep really getting clear about the new beginning that's emerging. And so those two are really present for me right now. I think we did a remarkable job on the ending, Carol. I don't know what you think.
Well, I just put in the chat that I notice how long it takes me to register the impact of the endings.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just like, no, we're fine, we're fine. And Shannon will be saying, wow, this is really, I'm really feeling this. Like, what is she feeling? I wonder, because it takes me longer to process.
yeah,
We each have our own way of moving through things.
absolutely. Great. Excellent. So some neutral zone, neutral zone, neutral zone. Um, uh, oh, the ending of something, a lot
Yeah,
of loss.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I think to Carol's point, we kind of want to rush through that. I don't know, we're not all that great of just sitting with and letting ourselves get present to really the sadness of the grief of something ending. Even if it's a good ending, even if it's a welcome ending, a planned ending, it can get hard. Hey, Stacy. Um, and Marcus, ending, lots of sadness, absolutely. So, as leaders, this is part of your work, is just noticing where are we at and what's present for me about that right now. So beautiful. Great. Thanks for
Stacey-
getting yourselves here.
Yeah, Stacy, I appreciate your comment about getting surprised left and right, and that how hard it is to stay grounded and not freaked out when there's big change afoot. It's like,
Yeah,
keep my feet on the ground today. What's happening today? Yeah.
yeah. Well, and I think that reminds me of the old term of just change fatigue, and really it could be transition fatigue. But when there is no reprieve, when it is the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, we do have to sort of increase our ability to stay steady in those moments. So, as I said, part of what happens when we move into a change and transition is the thing that we can all count on is that there will be a dip. There'll be a performance dip, a morale dip, a dip in clarity. There is a dip. And this is a sort of a great standard by Kubler-Ross, the change curve. And as you can see, the dark line is sort of a predicted journey for people as they're in transition. And then ideally the green line is where we as leaders work diligently to hold ourselves. And that's hard because we too are having our own version of it at exactly the same time. We're not superheroes. Um, so what we want to look at is that there is this experience for people as they're going through. And as Carol said, it's an internal experience often. Um, and there's a few things just to know about it. As you can see that it is emotional. And I always love it when people say, we shouldn't have emotions at work. And I'm like, there is nothing but emotion at work. The question is, are we aware of it? Can we name it? Do we notice it? Do we include it? Do we know how to have intelligence around it? Do we know how to be healthy with it? So as leaders, this is just part of acknowledging that this is happening within your system for your people and for yourself. We're moving ideally from this idea of uncertainty through all the confusion of resistance, ambivalence, lack of clarity, and then moving up toward some relief, some adoption of what's new, clarity about where we're going, and overall a commitment. What we're beginning to work with all of you on is how do we guide people through all of that over time. Carol, anything you want to add just about this
No,
model?
no, just also the reminder that if you are a leader who got to determine the change or name the change, you will have accepted, you'll be ahead of everybody else, right?
Yeah,
And so we have to test our patience as others come along with us is important to remember as well.
fantastic.
Yeah. And I think
And then I want to
one
see what
more,
Jason says. Preparing for the ending causes stress. Absolutely.
no
If I
kidding.
give you the example we just had of the completion of our founder, we had a couple years of preparing for the ending, and it was beautiful and hard, and there was a lot to move through. That's great. That's great. Carol, were you gonna say something? I cut you off.
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Go
All
ahead.
right, great. Sam, I'm going to flip to the next slide. So when it comes to this performance dip in the chat, and Jason, thanks for getting it rolling. Where have you seen a performance dip during change? So reflecting back or during transition, where have you seen it? What did it look like for you or for your team or for your system as a whole?
Like I'm thinking for us, we had so much confusion and overlapping for a while there of who's doing what and who to
Yeah,
go to for what as we, our new roles emerged.
a lot of
As an
confusion.
example, yeah.
Uh, so as you're chatting about this, so Ross, where does happiness fit on the scale? For me, I think that's a great question. For someone like me, sometimes there's a lot of joy in the confusion and chaos. Like I'm okay with that. For others, it could be really hard. Ideally, I think as we look to the new beginning, like the commitment, the clarity, that is, I think, when there's some joy and some happiness. But I think as leaders, I think that's such a beautiful question is how do you maybe pull through moments of that through all of it?
Even
Can we have levity and joy in the midst of resistance? Can we have it in the midst of confusion? How do we have that?
or even in endings, because some of us are super happy that the thing is ending, right? And
Yeah, yeah,
and the idea though is to make room for the whole range and not bypass or discount or move away from those responses that might be uncomfortable for you.
fantastic. So thanks. So there's let me just go back up. Great ones. So what does it look like? It looks like increased caution. It looks like reaction. It looks like a lack of clarity. Like, how do I get here? What's next? I love that. Oh, Marcus, great insight. Like when you skip straight to commitment, you kind of don't realize what else was going on. Like you bypass. And as Carol said, that journey is so important because that's where people are sorting themselves out. That's where we're getting to kind of get out of the way anything that we're concerned about. So we don't want to jump or force too hard. Beautiful. Um,
I like,
Confusion, frustration.
yeah,
These are experts at this. That's great.
I know, kidding. Just the so many unanswered questions and expectations that you should figure out. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you. All right, Sam, next one. So, what to remember as leaders? So, to remember that this decline, this dip is beyond normal. And part of it, when you're looking at managing and planning for change and transition, is to take this into account. And Carol and I had a lot of conversations about that. Just how do we predict and how do we get ready for and how do we make space for that? There's going to be a dip. So just to normalize it, to remember that. The other thing to remember is that the energy that normally has gone to certain things has now been diverted. It's now moving toward tending to uncertainty, finding answers, new learning. And so that also contributes to the dip. We're moving where we are focusing a bit temporarily. The next is really the old routines and how things have been are gone. And the clarity about how to engage in the new is not solid yet. So that kind of feeds into this idea of the energy is now into the learning. Maybe letting go of old habits, embracing new habits, learning new systems, new processes. Right now, our team is also kind of starting to practice with some AI tools, and we're really trying to look at how do we do it in a way that's aligned with our culture. And we're feeling the dip in that. Like we're really feeling that we don't know how to do this, and we want to do it in a really thoughtful way. And then there is, as I said, there is an emotional weight of change and transition. So that's for you as leaders to keep these in your mind that this is all happening. It's normal. Energy is being shifted to other places temporarily. People are trying to really step into new ways of working and leading. And inside, there's a whole internal system at play that can feel pretty churned up for people. Great.
And when all that's going on, we want to seek the resolution. We want out of it.
That's right. Which is why we just want to jump to like, just tell me what to do.
The beginning,
Let's get
yeah.
over to the new. That's
Yeah.
right.
So as
Great.
leaders, we're building expanding our comfort zone with dealing with the chaos and uncertainty. And the last couple of years in our world, we've been given lots of opportunity for practice. So
That's
I think
right.
it's a bit like Shanon said, it'd be normal to be feeling some fatigue, enough change already, enough uncertainty already.
And that's part of what I love about the work that we particularly do is it's transferable. You can take this learning to work and home and in life and in your communities, and it's so relevant to whatever you're experiencing this anywhere. Okay, next slide. So I think great. So we're going to launch a poll. So when your team goes through the change, which part of the dip do you find hardest for you to lead through? So let me launch this.
Can you put this slide back up there while we're doing that poll or not, so people can see the dip again or not?
Well, I don't, can we do that,
Okay.
Sam? I'm not
Oh,
sure.
that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So when your team goes through change, which part of the dip do you find hardest? We got like the slowdown of productivity, the emotional stress and morale, lack of clarity and focus, overall resistance, or is it just like all of it is hard? I know for myself, I think one of the hardest things for me has been the lack of clarity and focus. That's been my current, I feel like I blamed it a lot on menopause, but maybe it's been the transition. Well, dual transition, but just lack of where do I locate myself? Like what should I focus on right now has been really hard. Carol, anything for
I,
you?
I think the resistance to change, I get annoyed.
Mm,
It's like I'm just like we we have to accept this is the new reality. Let's get on with it. And
right.
instead of remembering, everybody has to find meaning, and make sense of why this is changing or even understand the change itself.
Yeah. Well,
That's
I
my
think, and what this brings up for me, and this is something we talk a lot about, is that if you want the change, the transition to stick, you have to be inclusive in that journey, and everybody's going to move through it in a very different way. And so, as leaders, this is like our chops around inclusion. Can we make space for where people are at in that journey? Can we wait and bring people along? Can we slow down enough to ensure that everybody is caught up and now we're going to move forward? And those are really important things to consider. Okay.
and maybe if you have a large team and a large organization, it's not going to be everybody, but can you get to that 70 to 80% inclusion, the normal
Mhm.
yeah, but anyways, resistance is
So I am
economic stress.
fascinated, if everybody can see, I'm sharing the results. I'm fascinated that nobody struggles with productivity slowdown. Fascinating. I mean, maybe people don't feel like they can slow down, so that's not even a factor in your system.
Right.
But and then also like it makes sense to me that, as Carol was saying, that the emotional stress and morale and the resistance to change are two of the highest. Part of that, I think, is it's the two that we are probably the least developed and least trained to move through as leaders. We know how to be productive. We know how to say, here's what to focus on. We haven't maybe spent as much time learning how do I hold people's emotional turmoil? How do I understand how to address the resistance? So it makes sense that that would be the struggle. Beautiful.
Including our own.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the next piece we're going to look at, oh, sorry. So what you can do. This is sort of like, what do you now do? You now understand the dip. You kind of understand what's at play. And now what do I do as a leader? So normalize it. This is expected, like almost as a mantra. This is normal. Provide structure. So milestones, priorities. I know our team had to get a bit more rigorous around that. Like, where are we moving together? What are we going to pay attention to? Reconnect to meaning. As I said at the beginning of this call, resurface purpose and vision way more than you normally do. Here's why we're doing this. Here's what matters about this. Here's where we're going, and here's why it's going to make a difference. Um, the next one is to check your own unrealistic expectations. So Carol mentioned that most leaders, when they're leading change, knew about the change way before everybody else. You've had years, maybe, there's been lots of conversations, and it's brand new for them. So to remember that they're not going to be where you are. And then tend to employee burnout. Begin to look at how in our culture can we tend to that. This is big work. Transition is big work, and how do we tend to that? And one way you can do that is to continue to name and appreciate the small wins along the way. These tiny moments where you're like, we're getting there, and to name it. And Sam will send all this to you as a follow-up as well.
And by the way, if you're at the effect of a change you didn't choose and now are having to, I see a couple comments in there about
Mm,
like uh, other people's resistance or change. It's frustrating because you didn't choose the change.
yeah.
There's something to that. You can ask, you can say to yourself, it's normal for me to be feeling this way. What milestones and priorities can I make for myself today in the face of the lack of clarity? What
Yep.
apply it to yourself first,
Mm,
right?
that's great.
Am I burned out and disengaged? Well,
Do I need a small appreciation?
right. What can I appreciate about myself and others around me in this moment that I can claim as a win?
Yeah. One of my favorite questions I ask myself when we're in big eras of ambiguity and change is, what is one thing I can do today, given what I know right now? What is it? And there's always something. There's always one thing. That's great. Okay, next slide, tracking time. So now we're going to talk about resistance. So, they go together like just a really beautiful little partnership. We got some performance dip, we got the change curve, we got some emotions flowing, and of course, resistance is part of it. So kind of this idea of energy resistance is energy in a system. It is, you feel it. I know that when I'm in the presence of resistance, it's not just a verbal thing. There is an energy to it. It has a force. And it's often rooted in fear or loss or lack of control or uncertainty. And everybody has their own reason why their resistance is surfacing for themselves, but it's rooted in something that is often about our own survival. That's why we're not wanting to go there. And similar to the performance dip, it's normal, it's expected, it's a human condition, and we all do it. Where we do it with change is different for everybody, but everybody has some level of resistance to some sort of change and transition. Great. Next slide. So there's 4 ways we can consider how the faces of resistance might show up for ourselves or in the systems we work in. So one energy of resistance is just active resistance. It occurs as a pushback, a solid, like, I'm not doing that. Perhaps there's a fair amount of criticism and judgment around that. So that's one way we might experience it within ourselves or with others. The second is passive. So that could look like silence, withdrawal, maybe a bit of sort of, absenteeism or presenteeism at work. There's a way that we just sort of take ourselves out of the game in a different way.
It might be thoughts like, whatever, we've been through this before, and I'm just going to let it roll off my back and pay attention, my body, my work, my thing.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say a word.
Right.
Whatever.
This won't stick anyways.
Yeah.
That'll be another change.
Yeah.
Covert. So, side conversations, gossip, coalition building, that the meeting after the meeting, all of that can be happening. And then just straight up emotional resistance, which is my favorite. Anger, rage, grief, anxiety, that there's a sort of emotional volatility that can show up. As you consider these, um, we may do them all. We also may bring different types of resistance to different contexts depending on level of trust, inclusion, belonging, how well we know people. For instance, I'll bring a lot of maybe anger and anxiety to Carol and I because we've worked together and such partners, and she gets that like she'll get it because I know there's deep trust there. I won't bring it in other areas where I don't know the people as well. Maybe I'll take a more passive approach, or maybe I'll get a bit covert. So we want to look at context and where we are when it looks at, when we're bringing these faces of resistance. Ross has a question. Any advice on dealing with when the staff hasn't been brought along on the change or part of the decision making? This is a pain point for me. So Carol, I think this is what you're talking about, like when the changes you're told versus included in the process.
Right.
Carol, do you have an answer for that one? Any
Well,
advice
yeah,
on dealing with that?
I think there's a couple things. I think one, I always think it's just better to be transparent. Like, look, some decisions were made. You didn't get to be part of it. We're being asked to accept it now. So let's just actively talk about through what parts are hard for you, what do you wish were different, and how might we move forward together,
Mhm.
given we don't like the change or we're upset about the change.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, even that image of that Kubler-Ross performance dip,
are you now?
where are you right now? And they could be like, I'm here, or
Yeah.
here, here. So I
Right.
love that, Carol, of just, I love naming what's so about it. You're
Mhm.
right. You weren't included. You didn't choose this.
And
We
that's
didn't
hard.
take your perspective into account. And now what? I love that.
And then I think there was there's a couple more comments in there also about how do you stay resourced enough? I mean, as coaches
Mm,
and facilitators, the last 5 or so years, we brought this up like, how do we keep providing out when we're trying to adapt ourselves to a rapidly changing world and organizations? And I think that's a whole maybe webinar to itself. But there are practices you have to do to take care of yourself and recognize. And again, I go back to transparency. I think it's okay to say, I don't even have the answers. And you know what? I'm struggling just as much as you are. And here are the one or two things I'm finding that are helping me.
hmm
What works for you, kind of thing.
Yeah. Um, and I mean, this is like, honestly, we've also worked with remarkable organizations that predict that this turmoil is coming. And like one organization we worked with, they hired us just to hold office hours. And they said, Henley coaches are on site between, 8 to noon. Go pop in there if you want to just sort yourself out about what's happening. And so knowing that they needed a space to maybe push some of that emotion and upheaval. And that's, I think, one of the benefits of also working with even coaches, external coaches, because we have a very different vantage point. We're not in it. We're out here, we can hold it differently. So that's another idea.
But we also, one of the pitfalls of leadership is thinking that you should know the answers and be able to
Yep.
hold it all. And that is very old thinking. It is okay to say, look, I'm keeping my eye on the future and my feet on the ground, but there's a lot of things I don't have answers to that I'm
Yep.
still working through myself.
Mhm.
That's normal.
Yeah. Well, Carol, I remember at the beginning of the year in January at our team offsite, you said, give me a year. I know there's a lot of questions you have of me. I need a year. I
Yeah.
promise I'll be clear. And I thought that was great.
Oh, throw
Oh
a
my gosh, throw a
party.
transition party.
I love that.
Jason. Okay.
I could see it a
I
bit
think we might
further,
have
but
that at our Henley event in May.
yeah,
Jason, we're going to
yeah,
put some budgie
right. We
bags.
can label the balls even and the
Exactly. Resistance. I love it. That's
rage
great.
room. Yeah, rage room.
The
That's right.
rage room. Totally. I need one of those always right now. Beautiful. Okay. All right. Next slide. So poll. I'm going to launch a second poll. Which of these faces of resistance do you notice most or often with yourself or on your team? Just kind of, you can, let me, let me find the poll. Toot, toot, toot. Great. So which of these faces of resistance do you notice most often within your team or within yourself? Whatever works for you. Active, passive, covert, emotional, or you're just really, really good at everything and you do them all.
I think I'm pretty good at all of them, depending on
I
what's
am.
happening.
Yeah,
If somebody is experiencing the anger, grief, anxiety, I might become passive,
totally.
silent, right?
Well, I have been in leadership development for almost 30 years, so I'm really good at all of these now. I've
Yeah.
been training hard at resistance.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. All right, they're coming in. Rage room.
Yeah,
Stacy.
I'm just, I just think about as leaders, as much as you can give airtime for people to talk during change, the least you'll have the resistance will go down, especially around the side conversations, because people
That's
can't
right.
help it. That's the way they're processing and trying to make sense of the change. But you can help them not have it be disempowering, gossipy, complaining kind of
Yep.
conversations by giving some airtime to it.
So this is the results are pointing to what Carol was just sharing, is that how do you create this space so that the two highest are around sort of this passive and covert? And so what Carol's pointing to is how do you create the conditions or the structure where there is a place where we are going to be engaged instead of passive, and we're going to be direct instead of covert about what's at play. So that's, I think, to design that in when you're thinking about change and transition is how do we host and facilitate those types of conversations? And perhaps there's a punching bag in the room when you have them, as Jason said. Great. Beautiful. And then I'll say the emotional thing real quick. I see that it's the lowest on here. Don't assume because you're not seeing it out loud that it's not happening.
Yep.
So we've been programmed throughout entire careers to not show emotion at work, to just sort of try to mask and cover and pretend as much as possible. Your job for yourself and as leaders is to know it's happening internally. It is there. There is grief, sadness, anger, happiness, joy, excitement, fear. It's all there. And so, how do you also ask the pointed questions to begin to have that come to the surface? Because it'll squeak out sideways. So just know that just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not happening. Great. Okay, so leading through all of this now. So to Carol's point, listen for the need underneath. So how do you create situations where you can hear your people or hear yourself and begin to think what's underneath that resistance? What is the need? What are they craving, wanting, and desiring? Um, and then the hard work is how do you respond with curiosity and not defensiveness? Um, how do you, when you're the one that's maybe leading the change or trying to partner through it, how do you not go on the defense when you hear that they don't want it or they don't like it? And how do you actually start probing for what's happening over there for that person? Sometimes this is kind of the last bullet point, but this idea of reframing the resistance as information is so important
Mm-hmm.
that our own emotional reaction to resistance can be to defend it or deflect it or to want it to stop. But there's valuable information in why that particular person or group or org is resisting this. Like what is happening? What are we not seeing or pointing to? What information can we glean from that? And then invite ownership of the person that perhaps is, and this kind of goes back to the question, like, what's a good way? What would make this work for you? And I think it's a great question. What I like about that is it moves the attention from, I should know how to fix that you don't like this, to what do you need? And this is like a coaching move, right? This is you being a coach saying, what would work for you? And begin to listen. And yes, there may be some negotiation in the answer, but it's sharing the accountability of co-creating how we're going to go forward together.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Even to say if this really doesn't work for you, what are you going to do about that?
Yeah.
Oh, so that you're what Shannon's pointing to is putting the ownership and accountability back where it belongs, which is in that fully functioning, we assume, professional adult that has to navigate the change
Yep.
or choose, right? Because sometimes in the end, it's like, I can no longer align with this and I now need to go.
Right.
But you can raise the tough questions that you don't answer, they do.
Hmm. And even when they're in a reactive state, if you as a leader can have really great questions, it actually also will help the other person move to a different part of their brain. They have
Mhm.
to move to a part where they're going to think and reflect and consider versus just being in a reactionary state. So beautiful. All right, next slide. So between now and next session, here's some ways that you can continue to kind of ruminate and think about all of this. So name it and normalize it. So if you're in the middle of a change and transition, as Carol said, maybe you start with yourself. Where am I on that curve? What am I noticing about myself and my own resistance? And then how do you begin to say that out loud in a really responsible and thoughtful way? And I think what's important about this is you're naming it and normalizing as a way to continue to move through the curve. And I think that is an important thing. You're not naming it to like side chat or gossip or to cause stagnation, but you're saying, I'm going to name where I'm at right now, knowing that it's going to help me keep sorting out what's next for myself. Creating the checkpoints, as I said, Maybe more meetings, shorter meetings, more feedback loops, more communication. We all know the old adage, like you have to communicate 5 times more than you normally do during transitions and change. But I think more of that high touch is needed. And remember that it might feel like, oh my gosh, it's taking so much time. We have so many meetings. The idea is that you're cultivating commitment, you're cultivating a new culture, you're beginning to look at what's needed right now, and it will take some time, and then you'll pop up and slide up the other side. Um, and so those are two things really to keep in your mind. As a side note, real quick, this is sort of, I just don't want to forget to mention this to you because I see so many great questions coming in. Our December webinar is going to be nothing but Q&A about anything. It's going to be open Q&A. And so if there's things that are really swirling around in your brain, email them to Sam. She just dropped her email in the chat. She's gonna, pull all the good questions together, and then we'll have time, of course, for live chat as well during that session. But as things come up between October and November, just know that December's gonna be a great opportunity for you to get really specific questions answered for yourself. Oh, good, Kira. I'm glad you love it. I thought it'd be fun too. I'm curious. So make sure you come to December. Okay, next slide. I think so check out. Carol, before we check out, anything you want to add? I mean, it was performance dip resistance.
Yeah. Just for clarification, are we having one in November? Because
We are, yes. Sorry. Yeah, we are doing November, and we
yeah.
just want to let people know, like, to begin thinking and feeding us great questions for December.
Right.
Good. So check out. So given what you've learned today, the performance dip, the emotional curve, what's happening in that space, also the possible resistance. What is just one thing that you can do different in the next 30 days between now and our next webinar? And if you can drop it in the chat so you can share your good thinking with everybody, we would appreciate it. And then don't hop off. We want to make sure we can see everybody's, and then we'll do a final goodbye. Carol, do you have something you're going to do different between now and November?
Well, I was just
Change
thinking
and
about
transition and performance and resistance.
how that first poll had so little on the productivity. And I was
Yeah,
thinking our team is not that different either. Like we just keep doing stuff. And sometimes that is creating the chaos and
that's
confusion.
right.
So I was thinking about in the next 30 days, where can we pay attention to what we can stop or slow down around
Yeah,
so that we don't in the mindset of I've got to get this done,
yeah.
is it counterproductive, and how can we just stop the action in a few places? And
hmm
yeah,
Well, I kind of wonder, given the human kind of reactive need to just get through to the new beginning, if high productivity is tied to if I just get it all done, if I just move as fast as possible, we will pop out on the other side. And I
right,
think there is a connection there for our team as well.
we want the relief of getting stuff done.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Um, I think for me, I'm just going to put the performance dip up on my computer, just sort of do a personal check-in about myself, like where am I at, and kind of continue to look at, where do I think our team might be at the same time. Um, okay, let's see. There's some great
Yeah.
curiosity. Let me go back. Beautiful. I just want to name some of the great things in the chat. So, inviting ownership, listen without feeling like I need to have the answer, curiosity over silent resistance. Beautiful. Um, Structures for communication, change curve present for my people. Oh my gosh, Stacy, good luck
Stacy,
on your surgery.
yeah, Stacy, I
I'll
just
send
want
you
to,
the recording. You can lay it in bed and watch it.
that's right. But also the fear of being left out. You're going to come back with an entirely fresh perspective and new thinking just from that being being in the recovery mode. Promise.
That's great.
Dan and I both
Uh,
thought about that one.
Refine how you're communicating about change to normalize it. That is so important. I think normalizing and levity. Let's just keep like, as long as the change is empowering and healthy for people and it's on behalf of, like we're all moving in a really beautiful direction. It's okay. All of this is okay.
Yeah.
Um, and then beautiful.
Change
Sharing
does.
solutions. Yeah, good. Beautiful. Okay, there's so many more. There's so many good ones. So please take a look. Sam's going to send out some. Do I have anything else, Sam? Is this the last slide? I think that's the final. Yep, thank you. So Sam will, as she always does, you'll get your follow-up resource after today's call. Please, please, please share that we do these every month. I love being with everybody. I think we have a few hundred people now that join us, which is really fantastic. And keep your eyes open for info on our May event. I'm super excited about it. Have a really great month. Enjoy October. Take good cares of yourself, and we'll see you in November, first Friday in November.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.